Management Studies IGNOU presents an audiobook on the course MMPC-002 Human Resource Management for MBA program. Presenting Block 3 Performance and Compensation Management, Unit 11 Compensation and Rewards Management, Part 1. After completing this unit, you should be able to appreciate compensation management function and objectives, analyze compensation issues and trends, assess the characteristics of executive compensation and its determinants, understand the principles and practices of compensation administration, identify the major components of wage structure in India, formulate different reward systems in an organizational setting, and take note of different types of employee benefits and their trend. Introduction. One of the most difficult functions of human resource management is that of determining the rates of monetary compensation. It is not only complex but significant both to the organization and employees. Employee compensation decisions are crucial for the success of an organization. From a cost perspective alone, effective management of employee compensation is critical because of the total operating cost. Another reason for studying compensation from the organization's perspective is to assess its impact on a wide range of employee attitudes and behaviors and ultimately the effectiveness of the organization and its units. Compensation may directly influence key outcomes like job satisfaction, attraction, retention, performance, skill acquisition, cooperation, and flexibility. Reward systems and their role in organizations have been studied from many perspectives and by multiple disciplines. Economics, sociology, and psychology in particular have contributed to the growing literature on reward systems. Reward systems have a wide-ranging impact on organizations, and that their impact is greatly affected by their design and by the organizational context in which they operate. Thus, to understand pay systems in organizations, it is necessary to focus on the characteristics of both the organization and the pay system. Often, new lines of business require a different approach and therefore a different reward system. Simply putting, the old reward system in the new business is often not good enough and indeed can lead to failure. On the other hand, developing a new reward system for one part of an organization can cause problems in other parts because of the comparison made between different parts. Compensation management. The compensation function contributes to the organizational effectiveness in four basic ways. Number 1, compensation can serve to attract qualified applicants to the organization. Other things being equal, an organization offering a higher level of pay can attract a larger number of qualified applicants than its competing units. Number 2, compensation helps to retain competent employees in the organization. Although retaining competent workers is contingent on many factors, compensation policies help by maintaining a fair internal pay structure and by providing attractive benefits. Turnover is thus reduced along with cost associated with recruiting, selecting, and training replacements. Number 3. Compensation serves as an incentive to motivate employees to put forth their best efforts. Manufacturing and sales organizations, for example, use monetary incentives to gain higher levels of production or sales without hiring additional employees. When employees put forth their best efforts, average productivity of labor increases. With increased productivity, fewer employees are needed to achieve the same level of output. Thus, labor costs are reduced and organizational profitability is increased. Number 4. Minimizing the cost of compensation can also contribute to organizational effectiveness since compensation is a significant cost for most employers. In brief, compensation is provided for two reasons, namely, as a reward for the past service to the enterprise and as stimulus to increase performance in the future. Compensation policies and objectives. The aim of compensation statement is to set down the company's policy with regard to salary. It is the responsibility of all concerned to implement the compensation policies and to explain the same fully to their subordinates. The compensation policy should aim, number 1, to recognize the value of all jobs in relation to each other within the company. Number 2, to take account of wage rates paid by companies of similar size, product and philosophy. Number 3, to ensure stable earnings. Number 4, to enable individuals to reach their full earning potential as far as is reasonably practicable. And number 5, to ensure employees share in the company's prosperity as a result of increasing efficiency. The objectives of any compensation system are numerous and might include certain points. They are: number 1, to enable the employee to earn a good and reasonable salary or wage. Number 2, to pay equitable sums to different individuals, avoiding anomalies. Number 3, to reward and encourage high quality work and output. Number 4, to encourage employees to develop better methods of working and their acceptance. Number 5, to discourage wastage of materials or equipment. Number 6, to encourage employees to use their initiative and discretion. And number 7, to discourage overtime working unless it is very essential. Compensation administration. The primary purpose of compensation administration is to assure management of a sound compensation system and for employees an equitable compensation for services rendered. The objectives of a sound compensation administration program can be subdivided into specific sub-goals. Number 1, equitable payment in proportion to relative work to the organization. Number 2, consistency of payments between comparable occupations. Number 3, adjustment of payments in relation to changes in the labor market. Number 4, recognition of individual capability and proficiency. Number 5, comprehension of the plans by supervision and management. And number 6, procedures to solve compensation problems rationally. Famous management scientist Dale Beach has presented 7 principles of compensation administration. Number 1, the enterprise should have a clear-cut plan to determine differential pay level in terms of divergent job requirements involving varied skill, effort, responsibility and working conditions. Number 2, an attempt should be made to keep the general level of wages and salaries of the enterprise in line with that obtained in the labor market or industry. Number 3, adequate care should be taken to distinguish people from the jobs. Number 4, irrespective of individual considerations, care should be taken to ensure equal pay for equal work depending upon flexibility of jobs. Of course, variations may be permitted within a pay range. Number 5, there should be a plan to adopt equitable measure for recognizing individual differences in ability and contribution. Number 6, attempt should be made to provide some procedure for handling wage grievances. And number 7, adequate care should be taken to inform the employees and the union, if any, about the procedure followed in determining wage rates. If the first goal of attracting capable employees to the organization is to be achieved, personnel must perceive that the compensation offer is fair and equitable. As a first step in the pursuit of equity, there should be established consistent and systematic relationship among base compensation rates for all jobs within the organization. The process of such establishment is termed job evaluation, which we have already discussed in Unit 5. Compensation determinants. At the outset, it is important to distinguish between 2 related but different questions. First, One can ask what factors account for individual differences in pay within organizations. An extensive literature suggests that education, experience, performance, and other individual differences play some role. Also, product market and labor market play a crucial role in pay determination. Product market. Pay levels of labor market and product market competitors play an important role in determining pay levels. Dunlop in 1957 argues that product market competition places an upper boundary on pay level because organizations in a particular industry encounter similar constraints of technology, raw materials, product demand, and pricing. Thus, an organization will find itself at a competitive disadvantage in the product market if its labor costs exceed those of its competitors. The reason being such cost will ordinarily be reflected to some extent in higher prices for its products. Labor market. Organizations not only compete solely in the product market but also in the labor market. Maruti Udyog, for example, competes for technicians and managers with similar such organizations. A pay level that is too low relative to these competitors could lead to difficulties in attracting and retaining sufficient number of quality employees. As such, labor market competition can be seen as placing a lower boundary on pay level. In order to avoid such a situation, many companies emphasize that their total compensation is equal to or better than other companies in the market. Compensation survey. A compensation survey is a process of collecting data and facts about compensation policies, practices, and programs of companies in some labor market. It provides information that has many uses. This information is particularly relevant to the problem of establishing and adjusting salary levels. It may also be used to validate the compensation structure. The objectives of compensation survey may vary from one organization to another. Before conducting a compensation survey, an organization should study the compensation data that are already available. If such information is not available, a company may either conduct its own survey or participate with other organizations in a cooperative effort. The data collected through survey should include not only information on the key jobs and their comparability to the surveyed organization's jobs, but also information on benefits, bonuses, and other methods of compensation besides direct salary. Failure to include these factors would give a distorted picture of the total compensation package offered. It is also useful to collect information on the characteristics of the organization to determine how similar the organization is to the one surveyed. In either case, great care must be given to compensation survey procedures. Conducting a compensation survey is a complex, costly, and time-consuming process. For this reason, employers should thoroughly examine existing compensation surveys before planning to conduct one of their own. Before deciding to use an existing standard survey, an employee should consider a number of factors. First, will the survey provide information to suit the organization's needs? If one survey does not meet an employer's needs, perhaps several surveys will provide the needed information. Second, how representative are the surveyed organizations of those with which an employer wishes to make pay comparisons? Third, does the existing survey provide sufficiently detailed job descriptions to permit detailed comparison with job in one's organization? There are three basic methods of conducting a compensation survey: personal interviews, mail questionnaires, and telephone interviews. The most reliable is the personal interview, even though it is time-consuming and expensive. Compensation survey serves as a valuable tool for the compensation administrator to acquire useful and necessary information concerning industry pay structures and practices. Compensation structure. A sound compensation structure must be based on job evaluation program in order to establish fair differentials in payments depending upon differences in job contents. Besides the basic factors provided by a job description and job evaluation, those that are usually taken into consideration for determining compensation structure are: Number 1. The organization's ability to pay. Number 2, supply and demand for labor. Number 3, the prevailing market rate. Number 4, the cost of living. Number 5, productivity. Number 6, trade unions' bargaining power. Number 7, job requirements. Number 8, managerial attitudes. And number 9, psychological and sociological factors. The compensation structure must be linked to what the company is trying to achieve. It is not unusual to find a company with a wage structure in direct conflict with the company's overall objectives. For example, a company may plan to produce a high-quality product while at the same time it may have a direct incentive geared to quality. An attitude survey should be made to ascertain what needs have to be satisfied through a compensation structure. What are the employees' attitudes towards the current pay structure and what are their deeper expectations? The pay structure to a large extent determines and reinforces attitudes. Two of the areas a survey ought to highlight are the reasons why employees work for a particular company and what motivates them. Compensation structure in India. The employee salary package normally contains, apart from basic wage, a dearness allowance, overtime payment, annual bonus, incentive systems, and a host of fringe benefits. Basic wage. The concept of basic wage is contained in the report of the Fair Wages Committee. According to this committee, the floor of the basic pay is the minimum wage, which provides not merely for the bare sustenance of life, but for the preservation of the efficiency of the workers by providing some measures of education, medical requirements, and amenities. The basic wage has been the most stable and fixed as compared to dearness allowance and annual bonus, which usually change with movements in the cost of living indices and the performance of the industry. Dearness allowance. The fixation of wage structure also includes within its compass a fixation of rates of dearness allowance. In the context of a changing pattern of prices and consumption, real wages of the workmen are likely to fluctuate greatly. Ultimately, it is the goods and services that a worker buys with the help of wages that are an important consideration for him. The real wages of the workmen thus require to be protected when there is a rise in prices and a consequent increase in the cost of living by suitable adjustments in these wages. In foreign countries, these adjustments in wages are effected automatically with the rise or fall in the cost of living. In India, the system of dearness allowance is a special feature of the wage system for adjustment of the wages when there are frequent fluctuations in the cost of living. In our country, at present, there are several systems of paying dearness allowance to the employees to meet the changes in the cost of living. In practice, they differ from place to place and industry to industry. One of the methods of paying dearness allowance is by a flat rate under which a fixed amount is paid to all categories of workers irrespective of their wage scales. The second method is its linkage with customer price index numbers published periodically by the government. It indicates the changes in the prices of a fixed basket of goods and services customarily bought by the families of workers. In other words, the index shows the rise or fall in the cost of living due to a rise or fall in consumer prices. The third method of paying dearness allowance is on a graduated scale according to slabs. Under this method, workers are divided into groups according to the slabs of wage scales to whom fixed amounts of dearness allowance are paid on a graduated scale. After a limit, there will not be any increase in the amount of dearness allowance at all, however high the wage rate may be. This method is popular because it is convenient and also considered to be equitable. Overtime payment. Working overtime in industry is possibly as old as the Industrial Revolution. The necessity of the management seeking overtime working from employees becomes inevitable mainly to overcome inappropriate allocation of manpower and improper scheduling, absenteeism, unforeseen situations created due to genuine difficulties like breakdown of machines. In many companies, overtime is necessary to meet urgent delivery dates, sudden upswings in production schedules, or to give management a degree of flexibility in matching labor capacity to production demands. Annual bonus. The bonus component of the industrial compensation system, though a quite old one, had assumed a statutory status only with the enactment of the Payment of Bonus Act 1965. The act is applicable to factories and other establishments employing 20 or more employees. Executive compensation. In modern business, executives hold the most pivotal place in an organization. They play a major part in looking after the economic health of the company. As they are important for the success, growth, and profitability of an organization, they have to be compensated properly. To make the executives happy to the extent possible, companies have been giving in recent years bigger and more frequent rises in salaries. The cumulative effect is that executive compensation cost is today a sizable cost and rising cost. Companies have started looking at executive compensation more systematically and more proactively so that they can expect better performance from the executives. For the higher management, salaries are influenced by the size of a company, by the specific industry, and in part by the contribution of the incumbent to the process of decision making. The bigger the company, the greater is the compensation paid to the executives. Straight salaries, bonuses, stock purchase plans, and profit sharing are used to compensate executives. In addition, executives are compensated for the various expenses incurred by them, for taxation takes away a major portion of their salary. Such payments are in the form of number 1, medical care, number 2, professional service in legal and financial matters, number 3, facilitates for entertaining customers and for dining out. Number 4, company recreational services. Number 5, the cost of education and training of executives, scholarships for their children and allowances for professional magazines and books. And number 6, free well-furnished accommodation, conveyance and servants. All these go under the head of perquisites. A sound system of executive compensation is essential for a number of reasons, namely, number 1, to attract the right kind of personnel. Number 2, to retain the right kind of personnel. Number 3, to motivate the right kind of personnel. And number 4, to get the best out of the right kind of personnel in the face of competition. The absence of internal equity leads to dissatisfaction among executives. In organizations, there are disparities between compensation patterns. For whatever reasons, compensation practices are kept as guarded secrets by organizations. Surveys of compensation practices tell us, among other things, that executive compensation practices are based on factors like traditions, technology, management beliefs, and executive acceptance. To be effective, executive compensation has to be seen as a whole, evolved for a situation, and administered in letter and spirit. Essentially, an executive compensation system or scheme for an organization has to be tailor-made. Also, it has to be reviewed and revised from time to time. Top management should develop an approach to compensation that accounts for internal as well as external equity. The executive compensation will succeed when the total package, number 1, establishes sufficient levels of pay. Number 2, provides internal and external competitiveness. Number 3, supplies opportunity, security and status. Number 4, maximizes after-tax earnings. Number 5, calls forth maximum effort. And number 6, makes the executive a much better performer both as an individual and as a team member, both for today and for tomorrow. You were listening to the audiobook by the School of Management Studies IGNOU for MBA program. Course code MMPC-002 Human Resource Management. Course Coordinator Professor Nayantara Padhi from School of Management Studies IGNOU. Voiceover by Harpreet Kaur. Edited by Tarannum Jahan. Program assisted by Jagbandhu Jana. Program produced by Dr. Manoj Kumar Singh. This program was brought to you by Electronic Media Production Center of Indira Gandhi National Open University.